Welcome to Dream Machine. My name is Arun.
And my name is Patricia.
Hey Patricia, and are you quite surprised to see us back again for another Dream Machine so soon?
I mean, at this point in time, I thought we were going to be coming back here for Dream Machine to discuss about Abominable, but not this.
Yeah, so guys, as you all know, we've completed Dream Machine, at least, you know, the main part of it, and so we decided me and Patricia, to give you guys a bit of a bonus for sticking with us for this whole series, and so we decided we're going to talk about this particular movie that we have actually mentioned quite a couple of times.
Yes, we have, and it is quite a trip, I must say.
Yeah, so without further ado, here we go.
I'm a believer. I thought love was only true in fairy tales, meant for someone else, but not for me. Love was out to get me, that's the way it seemed. Disappointment haunted all my dreams. Then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer, not a trace.
So, we all know the classic Shrek film, which was made in 2001. We obviously reviewed it at the very beginning of the series. But also, the fans decided that they wanted to have their own take on, and also pay tribute to the original Shrek movie at the last year's Shrekfest. So, enter Shrek Retold, which is a 2018 web movie that was a remake of the original Shrek film. And the scenes were actually made by 200 different artists. And it was produced by 3GI Studios, and also actually was licensed out by DreamWorks, so they actually had permission to actually make this film independently. So, I mean, going into this, people are going to be quite, I guess, a bit worried, I guess, about some of the things we might have to say about it, because, I mean, keep this in mind, this wasn't actually, like, a properly released production. This didn't get out in theaters, this didn't have, like, a box office or anything like that. It wasn't there to make money, and so, I mean, it was just a bunch of passionate fan artists who wanted to come together, basically, to retell the classic Shrek story, which I say, you know, good on them, and, you know, very good work for doing that. However, I mean, there are some good things to it, which I obviously we'll get into. I mean, in regards to, you know, the negative things that we're going to say about it, here's the thing about this. I'm not going to blame the fan artists at all in this, because, you know, keep this in mind, this was you know, made by a production company, and you could technically say the license at least was distributed by DreamWorks Films, so I guess you could say that the blame kind of lays with them more than it does with the artists who actually collaborated to do it.
Now, it's actually really interesting about how this came to be. So, from what I understand, some of the people behind Shrek Retold also was behind Shrekfest. And Shrekfest is this huge festival / convention gathering where people celebrate Shrek every single year. They dress up as the Shrek characters, they have an onion eating contest, and they just basically have this love for Shrek, both ironically and unironically, because I would say over the past maybe 10 plus years, Shrek has, you know, become from a huge cultural icon to, like, meme fodder, where everybody just makes a whole bunch of crazy music videos and they do their own fan animations based off of Shrek. I mean, you probably remember about the whole Shrek is love, Shrek is life, which was permeating throughout the internet a few years ago. And they basically just had these weird forums and websites dedicated to Shrek, and it's still going strong to this day. And I even remember watching a Did You Know Movies video on Shrek, and when it became, like, hugely popular among this group of people, and how they started to bring back Shrek for basically, like, for ironic reasons, making fun of it as well as celebrating it. It's kind of weird, but
which is kind of a bit of a it's kind of a bit of a paradox, though, when
all these people who are in, like, these passion projects, And I have to say that this is probably one of the most, if not the most ambitious, like, collaboration I've seen online. Because usually when it comes to like online collaborations, I've seen like people do collaborations based off of like a short or maybe an episode of a cartoon, whether it be 11 or 24 minutes long. But an entire movie, I have to say that is very commendable.
Here's the thing about this, though, because in regards to this film, I mean, the one thing that's quite ironic about it is that, Shrek in itself was a parody of these other of obviously the Disney movies that, it was trying to make fun of at the time. Yet here's, a movie that's kind of making fun of Shrek. In a way, and also kind of paying tribute to it at the same time. But, I mean, the one thing that really stands out for me, at least in regards to this movie, is just the zaniness and the craziness to it. Like, the fact that also it shows how different people perceive Shrek in this, and that, so some people have obviously done the 2D animations of it, and also people have done really cheap 3D things of it as well, and also people have actually done live action bits of it too. And so obviously going into the first opening act, I mean, so the first couple of scenes, obviously you can tell that this is a very cheaply made fan production of the Shrek lore. And so, I mean, we start off with cardboard boxes pretty much, and a guy who's in a paper mache Shrek suit pretty much. And so, I mean, in regards to the way it starts, I mean, obviously they're letting you on at the very beginning of all of this that this is just a fan interpretation of what Shrek is. And so, I mean, I guess you could say it was a very clever way, I guess you could say, to start off the film, but at the same time, it kind of feels like, I don't know, I'm still on the fence of whether it was, a very clever way to start, or it was kind of underwhelming. I'm still debating over that myself about the start of the movie. Really.
Well, you have to admit something, Aaron, that their interpretation of All-Star is something I've never heard of before, because everybody makes fun of Smash Mouth with this song with, late 90s, early 2000s rock ballad and all that kind of stuff. But here it's more played very softly, and it's actually pretty interesting to hear a different interpretation of a song that, again, very similar to Shrek itself, has become meme fodder.
Yeah, and so, in Smash Mouth is still played. This song is still played on Absolute Radio here in the UK tons and tons of times. It has not gone away by any stretch of the imagination. So it's nice to hear a different interpretation of the song. And this is the thing, this movie is actually filled of all different other interpretations of these songs as well. There's in regards to the Hallelujah, obviously it's played differently from its original form, and also I Want to Stay Home Today obviously has its own kind of remix to it as well. And so, the one great thing about this movie is that it's not just, copying the original Shrek film and just making it worse. It's actually trying to do its own thing, which...
exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's a thing that a lot of fan, reanimation projects tend to do, is basically take the original audio of the movie or the TV series and basically just draw in it. Well, in this version, they basically just take Shrek, they voice the characters themselves, they reenact the characters as themselves. I guess maybe because they want to put their own spin on it, as well as, having to deal with stupid copyright issues. Because I can imagine about since Shrek is still popular, if they were to still use the audio from Mike Myers, not Michael Myers, oh God, no. Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz, John Lithgow, I'm sure that they probably would have been sued to death. So I'm glad that they were able to, kind of get a loophole into saying, okay, we're just going to voice the characters ourselves, even though they're clearly doesn't sound anything like the original actors or even the original interpretations of them. So I thought that was really interesting, and just so much of them is just so weird. It's like a massive fever dream every 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And tell you what, I think I might just sorry to stop this all here. I think I might just got rid of the echo. I think. Do you just want to try it again for me, Patricia?
Okay, sure.
What about now?
Yeah, I don't hear anything.
Cool. Okay. So sorry about that, everybody. We were just we're still in beta with all this new studio at the minute, so that's the reason why you can hear us like kind of like doing production whilst we're doing this as well. And heck, it's a bonus episode, so forgive us. But
sorry everybody.
So in regards to this obviously going into the first act, obviously it's there's a big mixture of live action and 2D, and obviously there's like 3D elements of it as well. And mind you, don't you feel that some of it, though is funny, can you see it kind of getting a bit dated quite quickly? Like, like they say, oh, back in the tens, it was all about making it look really cheap and making it look really, really amateurish on purpose. I remember when they did like one of the Bat Metal updates on the Bat Metal channel, and they had it where Batman was complaining that he was only going to pay like $10 for an animation, and so the only animation you saw basically was him just wiping his hand like on a tablet, and that was basically the joke. And I'm kind of thinking jokes like that are going to be like I just think that they're going to become quite dated, I think, soon.
Yeah, I think that nowadays, when you take a look into like various media, a lot of people tend to say that, this is a cheap way of making things funny. Oh, this is a cheap way of trying to basically, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, to resonate with a character. I think I even saw Jamboree even post about something regarding about like character development, about like, oh, let's take a character who is a complete jerk. Oh, but let's give him a backstory where his parents died. Now feel sorry for him. He calls it cheap and lazy writing as opposed to like actually a character. And I think that maybe 10-20 years from now, if an up-and-coming artist were to see something like the stuff from now or the stuff from 10 years ago on Newgrounds or on early YouTube, and if they see like flash animation or animation that is looked to be cheap on purpose, they'll just say that they were just being incredibly lazy and that they should have put in a lot more time into it. I mean, animation, it tends to go into like a different trend every 10 or so years. When you take a look at animation from like each decade, it's completely different. In fact, there's this awesome guy on Twitter known as Harry Partridge, otherwise known as Happy Harry. He drew Steven Universe, and depending on what decade animation became like really popular. So you would see like 1930s Betty Boop and from Fleischer, or 1960s Hanna-Barbera animation, and today where it's like really expressive and thin. So yeah, animation tends to change a lot, and I think that for up and coming animators, I mean, it's quicker, it's easier to release because it makes a lot of people laugh and it gets people talking about it, saying like, oh, but this is really weird, you should check it out. So yeah, I think that tastes change, times change, technology changes. So yeah, I mean, you might have a point in like some of the people when they draw something, it's going to look dated.
Yeah, the other thing that
we'll
kind
just
of
have
makes
to
me
see how that turns
the
out.
other thing that kind of worries me about this, and that is that with this movie, I mean, like you can kind of tell, like the fact that the scene transitions are so sudden, I think, and like I mean, at one point, like if you look at the action scene for the when Shrek is rescuing Fiona and trying to rescue Donkey as well, like they must go through like 15, 16 different scenes. Pretty much. And I get that, this is an intense scene, so obviously they need so many animators for it. But, I mean, at one point, like, you're between, a three-dimensional world like RuneScape, and then all of a sudden it turns into, like, it turns into, those Zelda CDI cartoons. Like...
Yeah,
it's just,
that's what you get when you do these kind of reanimated projects. Every person has a distinct style of animation, and they're given a scene, and they have to draw their scene in their art style, and it just goes so quickly. I'm not even joking. Like, one scene can look completely different, and then another scene, you have something like totally out there. You have a 3D scene, and then all of a sudden it's a 2D scene. You have a scene where it's like really black and white, pastel-y colors that is very moody, and then all of a sudden you just have like bubblegum barf pink colors all around. So For a lot of people, that's what's fun of these reanimation projects, in which you never know what kind of scene you're gonna get. That's the fun of it. It's gonna go look completely different, and that's why a lot of people like it.
Yeah,
For
but
some,
the
it's
thing
completely
about
jarring.
the
That
one
is
thing
true,
though,
because you gotten accustomed a little bit to one particular style, and then all of a sudden you're going to the next style, and then that style that you saw previously is not going to come back.
yeah, but Patricia, I mean, if you look at other reanimations of stuff. I mean, do you remember the Steam Hands one? For The Simpsons, where about 20 different animators did different scenes for and also keep in mind as well, there was also the Only Plays one when they did Lord of the Rings, and so those were I felt like they were more pleasant to look at, compared to what we got in Shrek Retold, and so but I get it that the Shrek community is quite vibrant and quite different. And that's probably also described, pretty well in the Shrekfest as well. But, in regards to, putting this movie together, it just didn't feel it felt very jarring at times. Like, all of a sudden you would have, one thing. I mean, also on top of that as well, there was the one moment when, if you remember the scene where Princess Fiona sings to the bird and then makes it explode.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's far more, I mean, their version of it's far more jarring than, the other one is. But then all of a sudden it kind of goes into this, they go into the Merry Men scene, and all of a sudden it's like a rap battle, between, guys on the street. It's just it's all of a sudden it puts you in one place and it just drags you all the way over to another. It's just
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's how it is. I mean, you never know what you're going to get. And with something like Shrek, that there's going to be some weird shit going on, as opposed to something as epic as Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I know, don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing it in that way. I just, I think that, comparing it to, the Lord of the Rings one, that was just Only Plays. That wasn't actually, Lord of the Rings, the proper movie. That was just, a Let's Play of, the text rolling game, to give it some, obviously to give it some animation for that. But, and also
text rolling? You mean Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah. So, do you remember we saw it on the Arameta show? Do you remember? That's where Skull Cleaver came from.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Now I remember now.
I cleave skulls. But, in regards to, comparing with other, animations that have been done, I mean, I would still prefer watching the Only Plays Lord of the Rings one compared to, the Shrek Retold one. I got to be honest with everybody, because in some scenes, in Shrek Retold, I mean, there's one scene where there's supposed to be kind of this conversation between Shrek and Donkey. You remember when Shrek finally gets the deed to his swamp and he decides to abandon Fiona, and then also has that moment with Donkey when they just all in the stereotypical kind of oh, we're all gonna get angsty and then break up, and then all of a sudden we'll come back together in the end for the final scene. But
I remember.
you remember that. But I mean, they totally bypass all of that for a guy who then basically tells about how he basically badly reviewing him watching the film, which I'm kind of there's a reason why these scenes exist, so kind of so I mean, my favorite one that the scene at least in all the ones, was the one when they do when Shrek finally when we finally find out that Fiona is actually an ogre at night. Donkey discovers it. And so, that scene to me, all of that, I felt was my favorite scene in the entire film, because it matched the tone, I think, of what it was supposed to, that scene was supposed to represent. And, but unfortunately, there's just some scenes in there and I get that, some Shrek fans, want to be ironic with it and want to make fun of what they saw. But at the same time, I still feel like, the way that this was edited together, I felt like, the soft scenes should at least have been done, softly. And I felt like instead, I think that people who were putting the scenes together were just too insistent with them basically saying, "Oh, hey, this is my scene. I want everyone to remember it." And it feels like the volume is turned up way loud in this entire film, and there's just no. Except for that particular scene which I've just described, which I think is my favorite scene in the whole thing. There's no slowdown. The whole thing's just in your face the entire time and really loud. Because everyone's trying to put it on their signature onto it, if you will. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's very out there for sure.
Yeah. Shall we talk about the controversy in the room here? Because there's one particular celebrity appearance which no one was thinking was going to happen.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, so Chris Chan, because she's a woman now. She makes an appearance in this, and she basically does her own scene in the way of Sonichu, and I don't really know how to feel about that, to be quite honest with you, because I mean we know the controversy behind around Chris Chan, and we all know how much of a dick she was. To people, online when, she was, being, called out on how unoriginal her comics were and things like that. And obviously she replied in not a very good way either, pretty much. And so, I mean, I'm really surprised that they brought her in for Shrek Retold, to be quite honest with you. I don't know if it was because obviously they wanted to, just have her in as a laugh. I don't know, but I don't know. It kind of makes me feel like the same way that imagine if O.J. Simpson had just come off the trial of when he was accused of murdering his wife or something like that, and then all of a sudden they bring him in for a movie,
Yeah.
it just feels. Imagine if, let's God forbid, let's say Michael Jackson was still alive, and all the child molestation allegations came back out again recently, and all of a sudden, he was still alive, and yet he was still getting movie roles.
Yeah, that's true.
Imagine if that. It feels uncomfortable to have Chris Chan all of a sudden, in this movie. And don't get me wrong, if you don't like, obviously, her contributions, obviously there's other people in there as well, but I don't know, I just felt like it was unnecessary.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, maybe because maybe I'm just gonna maybe put this out there, but maybe it happened before the controversies, because I take it that it took a long time for this thing to get produced.
You keep in mind, this all the Chris Chan thing's been going on even before she transitioned.
Oh, okay. I don't know anything about, Chris Chan other than the whole Sonichu thing that my friend, the fanfic critic, read a few years ago. So I don't know anything about the controversies.
Yeah, I believe he got arrested recently. Well, a couple of years ago, he got arrested for, I think, some kind of public order offense. And, I heard about that at some point. And he got, there was a place he liked to go to, and apparently he got banned for something, some inappropriate behavior. So he's basically. People could probably make the argument other celebrities have probably done far worse. But I don't know. I just think I think they should have probably just stayed clear of him. Quite frankly, it would make more sense to have the Insane Clown Posse do a scene. To be quite honest with you, compared to Chris Chan, but that's just me. But anyway, moving on to other things, the music is very original in this. Yes. I think we've already described that as well. And so they didn't just copy the songs. They wanted to do their own remixes of them, and they wanted to do their own interpretation of it. And obviously, they're not high quality, music pieces, but obviously for a fan production, it's very harsh to kind of criticize it for that. I would say it fit the tone.
Yeah, for sure. It did fit the tone. Like I said before, they turned All Star into this smooth and slow ballad, as opposed to being incredibly hard rock and roll.
Mm-hmm. I just think that which is kind of weird, really, because the whole film is kind of it is a really loud film, pretty much. So you would think that Smash Mouth would have found a home here, but no. Obviously they wanted to bring us in another direction. So. Voice acting. Obviously, there are people who just volunteered to obviously reply their voices to the movie, and obviously with the live action scenes, they obviously kept the original people. So that was good. I'm really glad they didn't dub them in any particular way. There was some dubbing currently going on. I think there were some people who probably might have been too nervous to do any voice acting in their scenes, but some of them were dubbed over. I think with that, or either that they didn't speak English, so I don't know.
Possibly.
Maybe. So, yeah, there was some adorable moments in it as well. Like, there was one, I can't remember what scene it was trying to emulate, but there was one scene where, like, a guy was being chased around by the dogs. Or maybe it was the dragon escape ski scene, maybe. Like, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like, that really, like, it just came out of nowhere, and it was just so darn hilarious. Like, watching his, like, were they, like, boxers and pit bulls or something like that? They were, like, big breeded dogs, and they were, like,
Yeah, they
chasing
were, like,
around and trying to knock him out.
huge dogs,
Yeah. So, that was quite hilarious watching that, and so that was, like, a laugh out loud moment for me. But, yeah, just, so, I mean, the live action scenes, for at least for me, were okay, and they were, fans just trying to pay tribute, I guess, doing that. And, here's the thing about this, like, the 2D animation, pieces, you can definitely tell, like, they've had experience doing these again. I mean, keep in mind there's animators out there that have done stuff for Oni Plays and Game Grumps, and also done stuff for Cinemassacre too. So I mean, some of the people there I think have already had, like, previous experience doing this, and so you can definitely tell when they were animating it.
And I did notice some people like the Cartoon Gamer, as well as Unico Joe, who also animated some stuff as well.
Yeah, so, I mean, all of that, I mean, was pretty funny to watch, because obviously it reminded me back of when, watching the Game Grumps and Ernie Plays animations, and I love them quite passionately. So, yeah, it was those scenes were trying to grab my heart as much as they can, and so that was really cool. And, so obviously it was edited in the way that it was. And so, I mean, so Shrek Retold, for me, it had its up moments, but it also had quite a bit of its down moments too. And I don't know if they did this on purpose though, but did you notice that they actually dragged the credits scroll out as far as they could? Pretty much, I think it rivals the Care Bear one, to be quite honest with you. Like, do you remember, like, I don't even watched the Care Bears movie 2. Where they wanted to get all of Donny Osmond's soundtrack in, so basically they dragged out the credit roll as much as they could. They
did the same. They did the same thing for the Yu-Gi-Oh movie, in which they pretty much played like 5 or 6 songs, and they were basically saying like, "Hey, you're probably never going to buy the soundtrack to our movie, so listen to it."
Yeah, and actually they do the same thing with the Sonic games as well, don't they? So because there's tons of music inside Sonic games. So yeah, but I think I mean there's not really much to tell you about the story, to be quite honest with everybody, because I mean it's Shrek. I mean, like, it's, I mean, obviously it's told in a more original way, but it's not much else different from the way, I mean, they didn't really take any liberties with the story. So I mean, if you're looking for an original, Shrek movie, then you're not going to get anything here. It's just a fan interpretation of how Shrek was. Basically, it's Shrek Retold, as it is in the title. So now, do you want me to say something very controversial?
Why not at this point? Sure.
I would take this over the Disney sequels.
All of them?
The live action, the live action remakes, yeah, pretty much. Like,
wow.
Yeah, I just feel like this has actually some heart and passion behind it. Okay, it's a bit of a mess, but you can definitely tell that there was actually some a lot of passion put in by these fans to actually make this and retell the Shrek story, and you can tell that actually they were trying their best to put as much effort in as possible. Whereas the Disney live action remakes just feel like lazy cash grabs, as far as I'm concerned. So you can definitely tell where the heart and soul is going into animation and production these days. To be quite honest with you.
You're gonna have a huge difference between like watching the live action Lion King, and it's like, the animation is so stiff and it's not lively. Why am I watching this? And then you have Shrek Retold, in which is like, oh man, that animation was so crazy. And then all of a sudden, bam, another animation that's so crazy.
Yeah. So in regards to the Disney sequels and in regards to the live action remakes, I would take Shrek Retold over this. To be quite honest with you, like, I mean, obviously there's a couple of exceptions, but, at least I can say there was some effort put into this. And dare I say, I might actually watch it again when I got some free time.
I mean, I could see that.
Yeah. So by the way, anyone expecting that we're gonna put this in we're gonna rate this and put it in the top 5 best or top 5 worst, redo that thing again. Yeah, we're not gonna do that. It's a bonus episode.
Yeah, right.
Also, keep this in mind. While it was licensed out, and you could technically say it was, it was distributed by DreamWorks Animation because obviously they provided the license for it. It's not really, and so we can't really count it amongst the DreamWorks films, really. So, this is the reason why it's a bonus episode and not actually part of the official Dream Machine, series.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Mega Man versus Street Fighter, in which, even though it is part of the Mega Man games, it's not an official Mega Man game. It was a game that was done by a fan, and then Capcom was like, well, we haven't been doing anything with Mega Man in a very long time, and this guy has already done a lot of work into this particular game. Let's just distribute it and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, can we say Sonic Mania kind of counts in that thing as well? Because that started off as a fan thing, and then all of a sudden it took off.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I think that I think Sega actually hired Christian Whitehead and a few of his people to do an official Sonic game, as opposed to Capcom seeing somebody making a fan game of Mega Man and Street Fighter and saying yeah, we'll distribute it for you.
Yeah. You know what? I really need to make I really need to do a Let's Play of Sonic Mania, because it's it's the one Sonic game I never played. So, mind you, I never played any of the 3D games, but I mean, obviously that's I'm not missing out on much. I know that. So, yeah, I got Games Grumps to cover me there. But I mean, I guess I'm trying to think of other other things we could probably link Shrek Retold to. I mean, there's another game I could think of. I guess you could say Black Mesa. I guess the retelling of Half-Life. I mean, obviously it's not done in a crazy way, but I mean, you can definitely tell that there's some heart and passion put into this. And oh, by the way, as we're recording this, the new Zen beta is out, and so that's being played at the moment by Let's Players. So
that sounds pretty interesting.
Well, keep in mind, Black Mesa, they only got up to the part where Gordon Freeman jumps through the teleporter to go to Zen, and so the studios who's producing the Black Mesa series, they're still doing that right now. So yeah, so the Half-Life story is only half finished. So yeah. But anyway, moving off the topic, so I guess we probably should end things here. So, by the way, we want to say thank you to everybody for sticking with us for Dream Machine, and we hope that when we get to Abominable, that we'll have something really interesting for you there. So, but until then, my name is Aaron.
And my name is Patricia.
Take care, and bye for now.
Shrek is love. Shrek is life. Shrek will be retold forever and ever until the sky turns gray.
Oh my god. What a way to end.
Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on. Go play.